All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, and we are prepared to get underway for a special feature, a Porsche Cup event here from the X League. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be one of the largest events I've ever been able to have the ability to do broadcasting for. Now, sadly, the paint schemes aren't properly loaded up. I do apologize for that. But while we are here, let's real quickly look at some of the drivers who are going to be partaking in today's event. Tempered Chip's just going to be doing safety car features, but we are going to be looking at drivers such as Simply Clicks, IRT X Subaru, Lil Kid Suave, Eurodragon 3094, Destroyer 877984, Octavio Zzz, Kyle Sawyer, Savage 6647, Sir Brandy A1, Seraph 6 Raziel, Titux, Front Wheel Drive Jordy, HGR Turtle, Inlaid Wheat 5120, VNX Ruins, Reckless 5518, Towable Skydiver, and the lobby host XR Monaco. Now, this series is all spec tune. Everyone is going to be in the exact same tune provided by Indy Shadow in this event. It's all going to come down to driver adaptability. How good are you at adapting to the tune that Indy Shadow has ended up giving to you guys for today's event? We've lost Tempered Chip, so we may end up skipping a pace car for the event, possibly, just so we can cram one extra driver onto the track. Again, in this event last week, there were like 27 drivers looking for what would only be about 22 spots available. There is one spot reserved for a broadcaster. I do want to say thank you to XR Monaco and the X League for keeping that. There's also one spot reserved for a race official that helps with controlling yellow flags. Now, in qualifying, the fastest times were being set in the 123s. The slowest times were about 6 seconds off of that. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, about 5 to 6 seconds. We're likely going to see traffic, lap traffic that is, becoming an issue, assuming nobody's going off circuit, in about 20 laps, maybe a little bit less. The big thing, though, of course, is going to be with it being fixed tune and accelerated tire wear. How good you are able to adapt to the car is going to be very important. Another thing to consider, how do you want to calculate your tire and fuel wear? Do you want to go from the front forward, the start of the race forward, or do you go from the end of the race backwards right now? Because there are two different kinds of strategies you can take to a simple race like this. If there's going to be no yellow flags whatsoever, you know, let's just say your tires are going to last 13 laps in a 44-lap race. You say, okay, well, imagine paying a lap 44. You're not actually going to, but imagine paying a lap 44, then pit 13 laps before that. That would take you to 31. Then imagine paying another 13 laps before that. That would take you to lap 18. Then pay another 13 laps before that. That gets you a lap 5. Another option, start from the front and go forward. So go 13 laps, skip, do your pits at another 13 laps, so you pit at 13, 26, 39, and you come out with 5 to go. Another option as well is to try and shorten your stops. Make it to where you're pitting the same amount, but instead of doing 13, 13, 13, and 5, try to even everything out a little bit. If you can get it down to 11, 11, 11, and 11, you'd be pretty well off. Now, you might not be maximizing everything that the tires have to give to you, but you would be in a position where you're not really short filling and wasting time on tires that you may not feel very happy with right now. Can you turn off HDR? How do you turn off HDR? I'm going to be 100%. How do you turn off HDR? 1 second. All right, well, we are about to get everything ordered up here real quick. So, after qualifying was completed, our pole sitter was VNX Ruins. After that will be Sir Brandy, A1. After that will be SRT Jeff, DXD. After that, you'll be looking at HGR Turtle, I believe. After HGR Turtle will be Front Wheel Drive Jordy. Then it will, oh, it's not, it's IRT Subaru next, actually. Then after that, it's going to be Front Wheel Drive Jordy. Then you'll have Destroyer 877984. After that will be Euro Dragon 3094. He'll be starting in the 9th position, followed by Inlaid Wheat 5120. We saw him in the Saturday event just a little bit ago. Then after that, you'll have Savage 6647, followed by Alpha Rose 19338. After them, you will have Octavio ZZ. Following Octavio will be Tituk. Then Kyle Sawyer. Afterwards will be Seraph 6 Raziel. I assume it's Seraph 6 Raziel who's next on the line. Maybe a bit of a hiccup right now as they're double checking the exact order of the field at the moment. And now we start seeing him get moved into a proper position. So it's going to be Alpha Rose, then Octavio, Tituk, Kyle Sawyer, Raziel, Reckless, Dolly Huber, Beninja, Simply Clicks, Towable Skydiver, then Simply Clicks. After that, XR Monaco is currently last in the field. I don't believe he actually turned any laps in qualifying. And your pole setter in the Chevy Camaro will be Reckless 5518. So it was not the Lamborghini that we saw earlier. It's just going to be Reckless who's going to be providing pace car duties for today's event. So technically a 21 car field will be taking the green flag for today's event. Thankfully, Twitch has let me knock out enough ads that we should be able to do the first 30 minutes of this race completely ad-free. We're pretty close to the first 30 minutes of the race completely ad-free. If I get lucky, we might be able to complete this entire thing with only one break. I really want to try and keep that minimized during the race time proper here. As we load onto the circuit, 21 Porsches. Everyone's in the exact same tune, so everyone has the exact same things available. It's all going to come down to driver adaptability and, to a lesser extent, strategy for today's event. All right, we're going to knock out a pace lap real quick here. Once again, thanks to the X-League pace car driver in the form of Reckless 55. I should just say Reckless. I'm not going to go through the numbers every single time. It's going to get exhausting. For some reason, SRT Jeff is pulling out away from the field, and XR Monaco has pulled out. So it is going to be a 20-car field for today's grid. I imagine that Jeff will pull over and retake his proper spot on the grid momentarily here. So the Mobile 1 machines next to each other near the front of the grid, but it is VNX Ruins who has the actual pole. Then it's Sir Brandy's Mobile 1 machine. Then SRT Jeff's, followed by Little Kid Suave in that red and black Porsche, and then HDR Turtle who will be starting in the 5th position here. You'll see the entire field come down here through the S's. All right, coming down to the final 3 corners. Everyone by now will already have their strategy figured out. We'll take a look at what everyone's fuel and tire wear is once we're a few laps into the event to see if anyone's trying the soft strategy, a medium tire strategy, or something else. As our pace car has pulled off and the field now begins to double up in the final few corners. Now, there's probably not going to be enough time for the very back of the grid to be doubled up, but the front 4 rows are doubled up here. VNX Ruins are going to have to hold off a pair of Mobile 1 Porsches as we come to the green flag for a 43-lap affair here at Indianapolis. We are underway. And it looks like immediately Ruins gets a fantastic launch, and they're already fanning out 4 wide just outside the podium position. They're nearly 5 wide farther back there. Are they going to be able to keep it straight? 5 wide nearly into the corner, but no one goes off near the front of the grid. It looks like the entire field is going to get through turns 1 and 2 without too much issue, but now we start seeing the weird handling characteristics of Porsches come into effect. The nose of the car, oh, is that Subaru? No, that wasn't Subaru, that was Jordy, who's got sideways, and there was another driver farther back. Was that Wheat? What may have been Wheat, who got way farther back in the grid. Other drivers plummeting through the field. The strange handling characteristics of Porsches, with their engines nestled over the rear suspension and the fuel tank over the nose of the car, makes them very awkward and very strange to handle early on here. Big contact, and then like Wheat gets sideways again, and there are other cars getting into it. The rear of the grid really having trouble getting themselves figured out. Again, big door-to-door contact once more in the middle of the S's. You don't typically want to go side by side in the S's. If you can help it here, you just hemorrhage way too much time, and it's not worth any positions you would gain. But already at the front of the field, VNX Ruins has already pulled out a gap of about 1.25 seconds over the teammates of Sir Brandy and Jeff DXD. Brandy and Jeff now in a draft duo as they're heading down the front straightaway. Looks like Jeff's going to go to the outside. Brandy's going to defend the inside. Neck and neck, side by side as they come down to the braking zone. It looks like the draft is going to be enough to let Jeff get his nose ahead, but Brandy goes much deeper under braking. Maybe he went too deep. The car stepped out on him, and now Jeff's going to get back by him with the crossover through turns 1 and 2, side by side as they come now into turn 4. The outside line almost never works out here. He's going to make it work just a little bit, and it looks like Jeff pulled out just a little bit in the S, so Brandy holds on to second for a bit longer. But if these two teammates are going to continue to fight, VNX Ruins, who already has a 2-second lead on the field with only about 1.5 laps in the books, he is going to walk off to what could be one of the easiest wins of his storied career right now. A little bit farther back, this is Little Kid Suave and HGR Turtle, both of them relatively close to where they started the event. So while there was a lot of chaos around this in the mid to rear of the grid, the front of the grid seems to be relatively closely represented to what their qualifying positions were. Now we see that that purplish blue Porsche, almost an indigo color, looking at the inside of the red Porsche, that Milwaukee number 66, but could not pull off any moves through this grand chicane here that bisects what is Speedway Turn 1. Suave opens up just a bit of a gap now, and now Turtle is going to be under threat from Subaru with front-wheel drive Jordy just a little bit behind right now. Down the front straightaway once again. We are seeing again another attempt by Jeff to clear Brandy farther up, but it doesn't look like that's worked out yet. Or has it? Well, they're back to being side by side here for second position, and it does look like Jeff has cleared Brandy this time in turns 3 and 4. So they're not going to be side by side in the S this time. This could work out in Brandy's favor, because if Brandy has a good time through the S's, he'll also get a fantastic draft off of Jeff as they go down the back straightaway, but he's just not close enough to really do anything about it. Still, the leader, VNX Ruins, has already pulled out a near 4-second lead on, now it is 4-second lead on second position. So the fight's going to be for the bottom 2 steps on the podium throughout this event. Real quickly, let's go ahead and look at the fuel and tire numbers for our top drivers right now. This is VNX Ruins, your leader. He's got 21% on his most worn tire with 25% still in the fuel tank. I'll look at Jeff here, who's in second. He's got 22.9% on his most worn tire, 20% in his fuel tank. Brandy, who is now slipping away in third, he is at 23% most worn tire, 24% in the fuel tank. Lil Kid Suave, who is in fourth place and trying to scoot away from Jordy, he's only at 14% in the fuel tank, 31% in the fuel. So he's got a harder tire compound. Keep an eye on Suave. And then fifth place driver right now, this is a front-wheel drive Jordy. He's at 24.7% on the tire wear, 22% in the fuel tank. So keep an eye on Suave, because Suave being on an alternate tire strategy, trying to go a little bit longer earlier in the event right now. This series runs with tire progression set to 2.5x, so we're going to see quite a few pit stops despite this only being a 43-lap event here. Coming on to the quick switchback that leads into the back straightaway once again. Jordy right behind Suave. Is he close enough to try and go for a big dive bomb right before they come into the S's? He looks to the inside. That Milwaukee red Porsche threw a block, but the 44 will continue it through, and Jordy, fantastic move. Now, to be fair, Suave probably says, well, it's still early in the race. There's no value in throwing gigantic, crazy blocks early on, and Jordy gets sideways over the curb. Big twitch over the curb. He's still twitching. He's into the grass. He's sideways. He's spinning. He's around. He got that death sim twitch wiggle. That is one of the reasons why sim steering is one of the most dangerous things you can try to run on Forza. Sure, it gives you some extra speed, but all it takes is a bad hit over a curb, bad hit over a bump, a little bit of contact, and the car will become absolutely unsavable, and you will be guaranteed to lose control. And Jordy has slipped from a top 5 result all the way down to 10th position now. Suave goes right back to 4th position where he had been just a moment before, and IRT Subaru now moves up into the top 5 positions now. Jeff and Brandy still run nose to tail for 2nd and 3rd, but they've started to stem the bleed between themselves and Ruins. Ruins has only opened the gap to about 4.5 seconds over this duo right now. So he was opening it by more than a second a lap. Now that gap has kind of stabilized at about 4.5 seconds. Is Ruins just kind of holding back, just trying not to burn up his stuff? Or has Jeff and Brandy really started to figure things out? We don't really know yet, but I do know this much. We have this menage a trois going on between Suave, Subaru, and Destroyer right now here for 4th, 5th, and 6th. To the inside is Destroyer. No real serious shot at a move there, though, because Subaru had the nice ideal line coming through that corner through the S's. They keep it nice and stable. You've got to be very careful with the Porsches, especially if you have sim steering going over the curbs in the S's. Again, the cars, especially with the low fuel loads that a lot of these drivers are running with, they are very light in the nose, very heavy in the rear, and then the downforce levels are going to be the exact opposite. You're going to likely have seen Indy El Shadow put on a tune with a lot of front downforce, but not much rear downforce. A little bit of a side-by-side moment here, right between the final 2 corners, and now Suave under attack from Subaru. Again, Suave is on a harder tire compound, so he is just not really going to be able to do a lot of direct fighting back in these scenarios. We're going to see Subaru likely go a lot deeper under braking here, going into turn 1, although Suave moved all the way to the right side to try and block him, but still Subaru is there. Subaru tries to cross over, but that leaves him open to Destroyer. Destroyer couldn't make it stick that time. Now into turn number 4. The 66 is a little bit wide. The 22 has a much narrower, tighter run through turn 4. Now through this switchback and onto the back straightaway again. What can the 22 do? If he can get alongside that red Milwaukee Porsche, he should be able to brake a little bit later because he's got the better tires. But right now, Destroyer is giving more problems to Subaru than Subaru can give. Oh, is that going to be a double overtake? It nearly is! There's 3 Wiser coming into the S, and someone has to back out of it! And it's going to be everyone who's not Subaru. Suave slips back to 5th, and Destroyer stabilizes 6th, but fantastic job by Subaru to make that stick. And Subaru now goes up into the 4th spot on track. And Suave is still under threat, but now he is under threat from Destroyer. Destroyer is closing in, and we have now lost Kyle Sawyer. That is our first DNF of the event thus far. Bit of a twitch, bit of a slide there. But it looks like for the moment, Suave will be able to keep Subaru behind him. If he is close enough to still get a drop, well, Suave will be able to keep Destroyer behind him. If Suave is close enough to get a draft off of Subaru, he might be able to use that as a defense. It does not look like that's the case, though. Destroyer is lining up a potential dive bomb in turn number 1. Here it comes to the inside. A little bit of contact, bumper to bumper, but they both keep the cars pointed in the proper direction. Suave holds on to 5th for just a little bit longer. Real quickly, I want to look at Destroyer's tires right now. Destroyer's tires is at 45.8, 45.9% wear right now. Suave, who we know is on that medium tire compound, he's only at 27.8% wear right now. So Suave, on a much harder tire compound, is doing a fantastic job trying to defend as long as he can. But as he is trying the defensive game, Subaru, Brandy, Jeff, and your leader Ruins are all pacing off into the far distance right now. Real quickly, I want to go ahead and look at this fight for 2nd and 3rd once again. It is still SRT Jeff ahead of Sir Brandy A1. A little bit of a sideways moment there in the banking by Brandy. Both of them taking just slightly alternate lines through the corner, trying not to get too much of a highway hypnosis effect going on by hyper-focusing on each other and letting their lap time slip away. But now they come onto the front straightaway again. Does Brandy have anything for Jeff? He's got the draft. Is that going to be enough for him to maybe go for a big move here? While we see him closing in under braking, he looks to the inside. Is this the move? This is it! A big dive, and they make big door-to-door contact. Both of them knock each other wide in the process, and it's going to be Brandy who's going to back out afterwards and said, okay, maybe that wasn't okay, but Jeff is going to hold on to second position, and that in itself gave Ruins almost another 3/4 of a second advantage to his lead. I think Jeff and Brandy realize that there is no shot at them fighting for the win. They just want a shot for second and third place. The big thing, though, is that if these two keep bleeding off time like they are, they will be under threat from this driver here, Little Kid Suave, who is on an alternate tire strategy. If he can make this alternate tire strategy work, it would pay out massive dividends for him as this goes on. A little bit farther back, we have a bit of a truly train forming. It's Alpha Rose, Jordy, Savage, and Inlaid Wheat. Inlaid Wheat trying to recover from that spin that he had a little bit earlier. Real quickly, I just want to ride on board as you see what it's like being the fourth car in a 4-car train of Porsches here as they come through the S's. A bit of a moment there by Jordy as Jordy now looks to the inside of Alpha Rose. You don't really get side-by-side through it very often. That's why they didn't make contact. And now there's a feeding frenzy all around that 58 machine there. 3 wide as they come down to the braking zone. And all of a sudden Alpha Rose goes from leading the train to the caboose in this 4-car Porsche train here. Now they come into the last 2 corners once again. Savage now trying to make a move on Jordy. Jordy had a little bit of a hiccup over the curb, showing a little bit of weakness. Is there anything that Inlaid Wheat can do to try and capitalize as well? Savage right there behind Jordy. Nose to tail for those positions right now. What can Savage do to Jordy? Does he look to the inside? Does he vomit it up the inside? Go for a really big deep dive? No, he does not. They stay calm for the moment. Oh, and that's Jordy around. Jordy very nearly lost it. And now he is losing it. They're 3 wide and they're trying to overtake him on the outside. And that's Savage who almost went into the dirt. Now they're side by side. Teammate cars side by side. And that's going to be Savage, who's now going to work his way around Jordy, and suddenly Inlaid Wheat, after that big spin earlier, is all the way back up in the 7th position. Jordy and Savage still side by side just behind Alpha Rose looking. Here comes a big lunge, a gigantic lunge by Savage, and ends up overshooting the corner in the process. A big lunge that didn't really pay a big difference, but Jordy makes contact with Savage. Jordy drops 2 tires in the dirt, going through the S's, still side by side, still all over each other. Jordy gets a tire in the dirt as they come out of the S's. Now they fall behind Alpha Rose. And Destroyer pits now at the end of lap 11. So now we are seeing green flag pit stops begin as Jordy is now slipped back down to the 10th position on the circuit. Inlaid Wheat's going to join him in the pits. Savage is going to stay out. Alpha Rose is going to stay out, but Jordy is going to go ahead and pit as well now. So now we go ahead and look at the drivers up near the head of the field. When are they going to start pitting? I look at Ruins. He's got 7% left in the fuel tank, 62% on those rear tires. I look at Jeff, who is in 2nd position. He has got 2% in the fuel tank, 64% on that most worn tire. And then Brandy, who is in 3rd spot, he's got 6% in the tank. He's got a little bit of engine damage and 64%. So this will likely be a slightly longer pit stop for Brandy than he wants it to be, but he could end up being significantly faster once he gets that engine damage resolved. It could make him a monster in the straightaways and really cause him to up his ante against his teammate Jeff DXD here. And then we have IRT Subaru followed by Lil Kid Suave. Suave actually isn't that far behind Subaru, and big thing is Suave is still within 9 seconds of Jeff and Brandy, while I think Ruins is fast enough that he can run whatever strategy he wants and still automatically come home with a win. Suave on this strategy call might be able to put himself in position to fight with Jeff and Brandy once we get a little bit deeper into this run here. Alright, coming now, we see our top 4 have all pitted, and Lil Kid Suave is going to stay out on track, which is exactly what we were anticipating. Savage, who inherited 6th position, is going to come in this time. We imagine Alpha Rose will come in this time. What of Octavio ZZ? No, Octavio's going to stay out a little longer, and for good reason. They're another driver running a harder compound tire right now, so this should be enough to put them up into about the 3rd or 4th position, I'd imagine. They're going to be able to leapfrog a gigantic number of cars on just staying out on track while everyone else is still in pit lane, but they're not going to be able to outrun VNX Ruins. But still, Octavio ZZ cracks the podium for a first time today right now. And now, as they're coming out of the pits at the moment, we look down at Subaru. Who is he going to be fighting as they come out? Looking to the outside, you can see, I believe that's Tizuki But I believe Tizuka is another driver who's on a harder compound tire. Subaru has to be careful dealing with this merging back into traffic here. But Subaru is going to be ahead of Destroyer, well clear of in-lane Wheat, well clear of Jordy, well clear of Alfa Rose as well. So Subaru in a 6th place position right now. And looks like they're going to be in relatively cleaner air for a little bit. So Subaru up into the 6th spot. It is Lil Kid Suave who leads by 12 seconds over VNX Ruins. After that, you have Octavio ZZ, who is in 3rd position on alternate strategy. And then after making pit stops, it is Brandy leading Jeff DXC. So despite having to do a little bit of engine repair, it is Brandy who's actually ended up ahead of Jeff after pit stops were done there. The first round of pit stops as everyone pitted around lap 11 or 12, we're anticipating that we're going to see about 3 sets of stops over the course of the race, where everyone going soft all the way through. In that scenario, you may see drivers like Suave and Octavio, they may only make 2 stops. They may go medium, soft, and then try to take advantage of the track getting faster and faster as it rubbers in later in the event right now. This is a little bit farther down the grid here, looking outside of the top 10 for a bit. This is Towable Skydiver, running a little bit behind Alfa Rose and ahead of Dolly Hubert. Skydiver having a little bit of a trouble keeping the car on track. Skydiver did not have a great time in qualifying, ended up lagging out relatively early in the qualifying session, didn't get to run all the laps, so it plummeted him well down the field. It's just not been a great time for him. But in the pink, white, and black Mobile 1 Porsche, they are still putting on some sort of fight as they are continuing to pressure Alfa Rose at this stage of the event. The 108 machine closes in behind Alpha. Can't quite make something stick that time, though. And now he drops 2 tires into the dirt. That will likely put an end to this battle unless Alfa Rose makes a mistake of their own now. A little bit farther up the road, Turtle and Savage are having a fight of their own. Savage on the outside is going to let HDR Turtle slip by just for the moment here. Now, of course, the question is going to be, when will we see Suave pit? Everyone else may about 11 to 12 laps. If he's on medium tires, you can add about 50% to that. Could he go to lap 18 potentially? Titsuk now pitting on lap 14. A little earlier than anticipated, he'll be joined by Raziel. So Titsuk and Raziel both going ahead and pitting on lap 14 now. Lil Kid Suave, I'm imagining he's going to try and go to lap 17 or lap 18. And then we'll throw on soft. We'll put on another set of mediums. And then afterwards, we'll probably throw on softs for a sprint to the end here. Suave maintain a respectable lead over Ruins. Brandy has finally pulled away from Jeff, it seems, so these two teammates have finally stopped their constant battling, but there may be a tire reason. Let's see here. 43% left in the tank and 10% tires here for Jeff. What of Brandy, his teammate? Brandy is at 16% tires, 22.8% fuel. He's also got a little bit of engine damage, it seems, but it looks like Brandy is committing to going all softs all the way through, while Jeff may be going ahead and saying, hey, I'll run a set of mediums now and then put another set of mediums on later. Octavio paying a little bit earlier than I anticipated, so that's going to drop him out of the top 5 positions. But now Brandy and Jeff on alternate strategies. Brandy's committing to 2 more stops, but it's all going to be on the softer, fresher, faster tires. Jeff is going to be staying out longer, but it will be on the harder tires. So we're going to see a little bit of strategy crossover between these teammates once again later in the event. But I do like this strategy call from these drivers, because now these two are not going to be bleeding off a bunch of time, finding each other, going door to door and stuff. They can just focus on their laps to try and make anything happen to secure second position over our current leader, who is Lil Kid Suave. We are on lap 15 right now. Look at the tire wear. He's at 57.4 on his most worn tire, but the fuel number, 3.7%. He will likely be able to stay out. Well, he'll be able to pit this lap, obviously, but is he going to try and squeeze another lap of fuel out of that car? I don't imagine it would be a good option to do so, but I think Suave might try to do that. Another possibility is one that I almost don't want to mention, but it may be a possibility. Suave might try medium, just the 2 stops, all on mediums, and never let any of the mediums get to the 60% wear mark. Now, different drivers will give you different numbers, but typically you don't want your tires to get to that 62.5% wear mark. Suave, you look at his tires real quickly as he's coming into the pits now, he did not even hit the 60% mark. I also would give him a little bit of advantage as he'd be running a little bit less fuel in the car compared to the drivers trying to go a medium soft strategy. So keep that in mind, but Suave may be on a all-medium strategy as this goes on, and now this means that the lead goes right back to the Vantix 86. It is all here in this machine with 25.8% tire wear. VNX Ruins, he has led the majority of the laps today from pole. No one is touching him today. The fight is going to be for second position between strategy fights between Brandy, Jeff, and Suave. And when Suave has been finally finished his pit stop, how many cars is he going to have to fight? It looks like the answer is none. He is going to come out in completely clean air, but he does have some drivers ahead of him that he didn't have to worry about earlier. This is Destroyer running just ahead of him right now. Destroyer at 34% on the tire wear right now. They've already made one stop. Then you have Subaru just a little bit up the road. Subaru right now, you look at them, 27% in the tire level. But interesting thing with Subaru is running a very heavy fuel load. Okay, so why would you run such a heavy fuel load if the soft and medium tires can't actually use this much fuel? Well, there are two different reasons why you might want to go ahead and decide to run all this extra fuel in the car in a situation like this. Reason number one, in the Porsche, and I mentioned this earlier, Porsches typically have their engines over the rear axle and the fuel tanks in the front of the car. This means that having extra fuel in the car basically puts extra weight in the nose of the car. That can help you settle the car down. If you're not happy with how the tune is, again, this is a fixed tune, a spec tune series. All the tunes provided by Indy Shadow. But if you're not happy how the tune is, you feel like the nose doesn't have enough grip, the nose is too floaty, you can run the car with extra fuel to try and dial some performance back into it. The other reason you may run a higher fuel load is so that way every single time you go ahead and pit, you're going to end up needing to spend less time on pit because you don't need to put nearly as much fuel in. That could be a small cumulative advantage. Now, with that said, traditionally speaking, you're going to end up losing more time with just having a heavier car than gain the time from the stable lap times or gain the time in the pits. But that is a legitimate strategy, and in some circumstances I have seen it work out in this game just like it does in real life. So that may be the reason why Subaru is running a heavier fuel load at this point in the event. Meanwhile, we look a little bit farther down the grid. This is Jordy and Turtle along with Inlaid Wheat just ahead of them. Wheat still trying to recover from that big sim twitch spin from earlier. Has made his way up to 7th, but seems to be stuck there. There's a big gap between himself and Little Kid Suave. We also already have our first driver a lap down. That is B Ninja, 51-52. And Destroyer has just lagged out. We have lost a driver, and that is Destroyer here. We're going to try and reach out to Destroyer, see if they are going to be able or willing to give us an interview, but that is our second disconnect of the race, it seems. So now we're down to just 18 drivers running right now, although 17 of them are still on the lead lap right now, but that may not be the case for long. Simply Clicks running behind Raziel at the moment, but they are not even the full back straightaway ahead of the leader, VNX Ruins. Seems like Xbox parties are still down. I was not able to get any invites to go out. Dolly Huber now pitting, and boy, big slide by Raziel, and that really held up Simply Clicks there for quite a bit of time, but Clicks has a run. He's going to try and look to the outside of that Liquid Molly Porsche. Ooh. The Liquid Molly Porsche ended up sliding right in front of it. It wasn't really a block. It was more a case that the car started just drifting off. It looked like there was a small amount of a lack of grip in the rear, so it does not seem like Raziel is very happy with the grip in the rear of this Porsche. And now here comes a move. Here we are. Simply Clicks to the inside of Raziel. Drag race down the straightaway. This should be an easy overtake by Clicks if you can just manage this block going into turn 1. Raziel looking back to the inside, going really deep, and they make a bit of contact, and more contact once again. But Clicks is going to be the driver ahead of Raziel, although Clicks drops the tire into the dirt. It's going to compromise the run through 3 and 4, but Raziel does not seem to be close enough and able to capitalize on it. Raziel now goes a little bit wide further back, and Clicks finally starts to open up the gap just a little bit on Raziel. Good thing, too, because Ruins is barreling down on them. The leader is going to be so happy to see that these drivers are not actively fighting each other for a position when he finally catches them. All right, Inlaid Wheat still staying ahead of HDR Turtle, but not for long. Turtle getting to the inside of Wheat. Neck and neck, side by side between these two. Looks like that more indigo colored Porsche is going to go nice and deep. Maybe a little bit too deep the 93 goes. And we see Inlaid Wheat go back by with a crossover in turn number 2. And now at number 04 of Inlaid Wheat holds on to position over HDR Turtle. Turtle pulls up right behind the rear wing and rear diffuser of the yellow and white Porsche. Can't make it stick, and we may have just lost another driver. Yeah, it looks like we have lost Raziel, who was one of our drivers near the rear of the grid. Here comes Turtle again. Turtle goes for another big move on Inlaid Wheat. This time does not go going in too deep and sliding out wide on exit. Turtle is going to hold the position over Wheat now. We're going to try and reach out to Raziel here as we continue to watch Turtle and Gordon. Oh, Turtle's pitting. Turtle's pitting as early as lap 20. So that's an interesting choice to pit this early in the event. But Turtle is saying, all right, I'll go ahead. I'll pit nice and early in the event. I'll let you go ahead and try to turn some laps on some old tires. I'm going to turn some laps on some fresh tires. Still, it looks like the Xbox parties are not working, as another invite seems to have failed here. I do apologize. I want to try and get interviews throughout the event, but if Xbox stability is not there, I will not be able to get those for you tonight. Towable Skydiver also went ahead and pitted this lap as well. DNX Ruins has now put Simply Clicks a lap down. So you have to wonder, did Raziel have a disconnect issue, or Raziel see that they were going to go a lap down, saw the pace of the race and said, look, I'm not going to go 2 laps down, and then went ahead and backed out of it? Because at the rate Ruins is going, he is likely going to be able to put a lot of people lap down. Basically, everyone from about 8th on down is at risk of going a lap down to Ruins due to this absolutely blistering pace that he is setting today. Meanwhile, second place is still Brandy, but Brandy is on a all-soft tire pit stop strategy. As far as we can tell, they've got a little bit less than 6% left in the tank, 56% on their most worn tire. They're likely going to try and pit at the end of lap 22. Then you have SRT Jet DXD, who is ranked in 3rd position on an alternate strategy right now, trying to minimize pit stops, but he's going to be on a harder compound tire later in the event. But again, minimizing pit stops, cutting out the slowest part of the race may be the big thing for him. And then a little bit behind both of them is Lil Kid Suave, who is doing a all-medium strategy, we believe, but he is not going to be pushing his medium tires anywhere near as far as what Jeff is pushing, or as far as Brandy is pushing his own soft tires. So again, 3 interestingly unique strategies going on right now. Jordy and Inlaid Wheat both went ahead and jumped into the pit lane, this time by Alpha Rose. Leads over Octavio ZZ as these two drivers now move their way into the top 10 positions right now. Still, I want to see our leader, make his stop along with Sir Brandy, our second place driver. But now only 13 drivers stay on the lead lap, and Tizouk here is relatively close to going a lap down in his own right. Although he is on harder compound tires, he'll probably stay out on track for a lot longer. Ruins is likely going to be pitting at the end of this lap here. Octavio ZZ still runs behind Alpha Rose there. But it does not look like Octavio is close enough to really put any pressure on Alpha Rose here in the earlier moments. Right now, though, only the top 4 are within 30 seconds of the leader. Again, any chance that anybody had of catching Ruins is gone. Unless Ruins has a disconnect or gets caught up in some accident caused by lap traffic, this is going to be one of the easiest walk-off wins I imagine he'll ever see. But we have an interesting 3-way strategy fight for what is second position between Brandy, Jeff, and Suave. And now Ruins has finally jumped into the pit lane. I want to check on Brandy. How worn is his tires as he's going to come into the pit lane this time by? 67%. Oh my goodness. And he's very low on fuel. He's going to have to repair the engine as well. That's not going to help him. But he's going to jump into the pits. What of Subaru? A little bit farther back and forth. I don't think he's really in the fight for the win, but look at this. He still has a lot of fuel left in the car. He'll be paying this time, but he can short fill if he wants to try and gain a little bit more ground. Also, we are now going to have what should be our third different leader of the day. Ruins and Suave have been the other two drivers to lead, but SRT Jeff DXT is now going to go into the lead here at Indianapolis. Lil Kid Suave is going to leap back up into the third position, I imagine. But Jeff now leads over Ruins by about 8, maybe 9 seconds. Might be more, might be closer to 10 seconds. Again, I don't anticipate that Ruins is going to be going fast enough to really be able to leapfrog Jeff on track. How do I want to put this? I don't think that Ruins is going to go fast enough to catch Jeff on track. I think Jeff is likely going to be pitting before Ruins catches him. But if Ruins does get caught by Jeff, that could get interesting, because if the two of them start spending a lot of time fighting with each other, well, Jeff's going to be in a bad position compared to Suave and Brandy. Real quickly, I also want to go ahead and compare Suave and Brandy on track. Suave, who is on an all-medium strategy with no big tire wear, versus Brandy, who is on an all-soft strategy with a lot of tire wear. The gap right now is about 9 to 8 seconds, and it is closing in Brandy's favor. Will Brandy be able to catch Suave before Suave makes his final stop? Again, Brandy, we imagine, still has one more stop to make as well. Both Suave and Brandy have another stop, but Brandy is going to be faster than Suave from here to the end. But also, Brandy is really going to be punishing the crap out of those tires. And Subaru has now slipped all the way back to the 5th position here on circuit. All right, we're going to go ahead and ride on board for a lap with Lil Kid Suave here around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be back momentarily here at the Brickyard. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're a little bit more than halfway through our 44, technically 43 lap event here at the Brickyard. It has been VNX Ruins who has been the dominant driver of the day, but due to strategy shenanigans, it is SRT Jeff DXT who is leading at the moment, and third place is Lil Kid Suave. It is Jeff, Suave, and Brandy. Those three drivers are in a three-way fight for the bottom two steps on the podium. Ruins is just trying to continue to turn laps in clean air. The good news for Ruins, though, is that Jeff is likely going to be pitting sooner rather than later. We look at the tire wear. He is at 57.7% left in the tires. Again, Jeff is on a soft, medium strategy, so he is still asking a lot of life out of the soft tires and out of the medium tires here. He is going to be hemorrhaging time over the last lap or two. That is the big thing that Lil Kid Suave does not have to worry about. He's not really bleeding off a whole lot of time running on burnt out rubber. The gap is 14 seconds. We know that Suave is likely going to end up making his final stop a little bit later than Jeff. Suave also may be able to get away with a slightly shorter fill as he does so as well. Also, more and more drivers are continuing to come at risk of going a lap down. This is Alfa Rose back here in the 14th position in this white and pink Coca-Cola number 58 machine. We look at Alfa Rose's fuel and tires. They've got 33% left in the tank, so they're likely still going to make one more stop. In fact, at this point, I imagine nearly everyone has one more stop left in them. Real quickly, looking at everyone's pit stops totals thus far, you can see Jeff and Suave, who are doing medium tire strategies. Octavio ZZ in 7th also is on a medium tire strategy. So is Tizouk, Simply Clicks, and that is it. Reckless is the pace car, doesn't really count for that. Real quickly, your changes on the grid since the start of the race, although it's not perfect because there is the pace cars, which kind of shakes everything else. You basically have to drop everything by one number. But Octavio up 6 positions from their starting position. Simply Clicks up 8 positions from the start. Started 20th, moved up to 12th. Now, granted, 3 of those positions are off the back of disconnects, but still, that has a significant amount of ground gain. Towable Skydiver, another driver. Real quickly, I want to look at Towable Skydiver. Towable Skydiver, another driver that has had a fantastic job, had absolutely a horrendous time in qualifying, but now in the race has moved up 6 spots from the beginning of the race. So while it's not top 10, Towable Skydiver showing some capability in that 108 pink, black, and white Porsche. So Jeff has made his stop out of the lead of the race, which gives the lead back over to VNX Ruins. Look at Suave is within just about 12 seconds of Ruins. But again, Ruins and Suave, we know, both have another pit stop they're going to be making, and Ruins is not going to be touched by anyone else. The big thing is going to be Brandy versus Suave, because Brandy is doing the all-soft strategy. Right now, his tires aren't in a bad position. No, wait, this isn't it. Brandy's not who I'm thinking of. It is Jeff, isn't it? Am I getting these two confused? Nope. Jeff just pitted. So Brandy is on a harder compound tire now? Well, Brandy's made 2 stops at this point. But those tires do not have the wear of softs on them. So on his second stop, did he throw on the medium tires? Well, if he has another stop, it would be on lap 33 in 5 more laps. So no, Brandy is on softs. Yes, okay. So Brandy is definitely on the soft tires. Has one more stop to make. Suave, just ahead of him, is on medium tires. I will likely pit in a few laps here. But here's the thing. So Brandy has caught Suave, so the pace advantage is very distinctly in Brandy's favor. Caught Suave much faster than I realized. So now the question is there anything that Suave can do to try and defend against Brandy? Or does he hope that he just holds Brandy up enough that once Brandy gets by, Brandy already burns the best off of his tires and the draft keeps Suave in contention? That is a very aggressive block to the inside. Brandy's going deep, but the tire advantage is there. He'll be able to hold ahead of Suave. Oh, Suave lunging, though, into the S. You don't want to be side by side through here, people. And they're going side by side through here anyway. They finally come out of the S's, and Brandy is going to pull it off. And now he's going to try and start pulling away. Now, Suave just wants to stay close enough that he can still get the draft. If he can get the draft, he can negate some of the loss in tire time, in tire performance here. And now already we see Brandy scooting off into the distance. I think Suave is just close enough to get a small draft off of Brandy, but it seems like in the fight between Brandy, Suave, and Jeff, seems like Brandy is able to take advantage of just sheer soft tire pace and is just able to open up a big gap on the other drivers here. The gap between Brandy and Jeff at the moment is 12 seconds, so that may swing back into Jeff's favor, but if Brandy is going to continue to be faster than Suave and Jeff to the end, that may not matter. HDR Turtle and Octavio ZZ have gone ahead and made their stops. This will briefly bump Inlay Lead, who had that big Simtwit spin earlier, bump him up into the top 5s again. But, well, top 6 again, 6th position. But again, look at these tires, 49% on the front and the rear. I will say, though, Inlaid Wheat is doing a fantastic job balancing the amount of tire wear from the nose of the car to the rear. That means that he is perfectly maximizing what the tire life is all the way around. And this isn't even his tune. That's normally something that you get out of somebody who does a lot of their own tuning work on their own car. But this is a spec tune series. All the tunes are provided by Indy Shadow. Inlaid Wheat, though, seems to really agree with the tune that Shadow has provided. He is very happy with that very balanced tire wear, running the 6th position, and frankly could have been higher if not for that sim twitch spin from earlier. Do we know what tires Jeff is running? Yes, it is mediums. We believe that he is running this set of mediums. Well, I think he's running mediums. Brandy is on softs. Suave is on mediums. I believe that Jeff is on mediums. I could be wrong. He may have jumped onto softs, which would be an interesting strategy. But considering that he is still hemorrhaging time to Brandy, I imagine that Jeff is on the medium tires. He still has plenty of fuel left in the tank as well, despite having some wear on the tires, which also makes me think, oh, and he runs right into the back of some lap traffic there. But that all makes me think that Jeff is running the medium tires. I believe that Jeff's strategy, he started on the soft tires, jumped onto the mediums, jumped onto this next set of mediums, and is going to try and run this set of mediums to the end, and they're going to have some significant wear on them near the end of the race. Basically, Jeff is hoping that all the time he gained early in the race on the softs is going to put him far enough ahead of drivers like Lil Kid Suave, who's started on the mediums and have been running mediums basically all day long. Also, Suave has completely lost touch with Sir Brandy, is back to just running laps all by himself, and I look at Brandy here. Brandy is going to be paying probably in the next 2 to 3 laps. He's got engine damage, though. Again, well, maybe not. Now that goes away. But his tires are just about to hit the 50% mark. Thing is, and here comes Suave pitting now. So Suave pits now with 14 laps left. And again, Suave is not pushing the tires to a ridiculous margin. Simply Clicks also went ahead and jumped into the pit lane. Right now, only 9 drivers are on the lead lap. Now that will likely change once Ruins goes ahead and makes a stop in the next 2 or 3 laps as well. So Suave has made his pit stop, and that may put him right in the middle of traffic. And if so, that would not help him out whatsoever. Octavio ZZ has now also gone a lap down, so has Alpha Rose at this stage of the event. So what I'm going to do here is, while we are in the middle of green flag stops, I don't believe our leader is going to be paying this time by. I'm going to knock out our last Twitch-mandated ad break for this race. After this, we will stay on track to the checkered flag, but we are going to ride on board for a flying lap with VNX Ruins, our pole sitter, the driver who has led the most laps, and the one who's likely going to walk off with this win. We'll be back momentarily here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Brickyard, for a good old 44-lap showcase of Porsche Cup racing here, presented by X League. VNX Ruins is your leader, and Towable Skydiver, who had been doing a fantastic recovery dive, has suddenly dropped out of the event. We're going to try and reach out to Towable Skydiver and hopefully get some word from somebody from one of these events, but frustration time as we have lost another driver over the course of the event today. We are still waiting to see if VNX Ruins is going to pit this lap. We also imagine that Sir Brandy will likely be pitting this lap as well. But the question is, where will that put him in relation to Jeff DXD and Lil Kid Suave? Suave has fallen way down to 6th position. It seems like while he's doing a good job managing the tires and making sure the tires don't really put on way too much wear, he's just not having a great time making any lap time and can't really fight at all. Again, the Xbox invites failed. I don't know if we're going to be able to get any post-event interviews, and I do apologize if that ends up being an issue here. But VNX Ruins now making the stop. Sir Brandy, though, still out on track, but is going to come in this time by. However, that means that Ruins has a big enough lead. He will not lose the lead during this pit stop. Jeff DXC, though, where is Jeff going to end up in relation to Sir Brandy here? Brandy's going to have fresher tires for a little bit here. Jeff is already at 43% wear on those tires. Jeff is really going to be pushing those tires. Are these tires actually going to work out? Is the strategy that I thought he was on not actually the strategy he's calling for? IRT Subaru also going ahead and jumping into the pit lane now. Where's Suave? Has Suave caught the likes of Brandy at all? No, it's not even close. That's like a 16-second difference between Brandy and Suave. Well, it's going to drop a bit here. We're going to see Brandy maintains position over Suave. The other wild card is that front-wheel drive Jordy is still in the middle of this as well. Jordy on their own alternate strategy. Trying to press these tires out as far as they can. Likely going for a short fill, quick run on the softs, kind of a dash to the end here. But it does seem like Jeff's actually ended up ahead of Ruins. I've really miscalculated this. If Jeff has suddenly ended up ahead of Ruins, I've really miscalculated the how big the pit lane delta is. He's not going to be ahead of Ruins for long, I imagine. But wow, that was a massive miscalculation on my part at how bad the pit lane delta is around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. As they come down the front straightaway once again, Jeff gets to click off another lap led, but Jeff will have to pit sooner rather than later here. Ruins also is just hanging out about 0.4 of a second behind in the draft. Now Jordy pits with about 9 laps left. Ruins goes for a dive bomb attempt in turn 1, but not really close enough to make it stick. But Ruins is trying to put some pressure on Jeff, trying to get Jeff to make a mistake. Here goes the move. Ruins to the inside of Jeff. Jeff goes for the crossover. They come to the switchback, though, and they go single file before they get onto the back straightaway. A little bit of a draft. Does Jeff try to go for a big glory hog moment, go for a big dive under braking, or is he more focused on second? No, he goes for it. He's going to go for a dive bomb under braking on the back straightaway. Side by side for a lead. Jeff versus Ruins, neck and neck as they come into the S's, though. The superior traction, superior everything that Ruins seems to have today puts him back into the lead, but Jeff is not letting him get away. They come out of the S's now and into the Speedway section once more. Down into the short chute where you get the most banking around the entire layout here. And then you jump heavy onto the brakes onto a flatter part of the circuit, and Jeff says, all right, I've had my fun, it's time to pit now. But Jeff, on a much more radically unique strategy than what I imagined, it seems, is going to go ahead and jump into the pits now. So now the question is, where is Jeff going to be in relation to Brandy and Lil Kid Suave? Brandy already has 10 seconds over Suave, so it seems like between the two of them, that's resolved. What about Jeff versus Brandy? What's the difference going to look like between them? Brandy coming around the final corner and onto the front straightaway this time by. It looks like it's going to be easily Brandy going back into the second position on track, but Jeff is going to have a massive tire advantage going forward. What of Lil Kid Suave versus Jeff? Here comes Suave. He's out of the final corner. corner now. Jeff is rolling down the pit lane straightaway as we speak. Suave crosses the yard of bricks at the start-finish line. Now we'll see him overtake Jeff, as Jeff is just coming out of pit lane right now. Suave is going to have a massive tire disadvantage against Jeff. I think Jeff is going to be able to nip Suave for the third position without any issue here. So we may see the top three being very, very close to what their initial starting positions were, despite them all being on different strategies over the course of the event. And Brandy has 10 seconds over Suave right now, so unless Brandy has done a massive miscalculation on his tires, second position is easily his. And with the amount of fuel and the amount of tire life left on that thing, I think Brandy is going to be fine. He can afford to bleed off some time to Suave and Jeff here. The fight's going to be Jeff versus Suave. How long will it take Jeff DXE to catch Suave for a third position? Also, in the middle of it all, I do want to give a quick shout out to Subaru, who kind of pulled away from the rest of the field. Has been running most of this race in nice, clean air, going to come home in what we believe should be fifth position today. Over the course of the event, we have seen a lot of drivers go a lap down, several drivers drop out. Octavio ZZ right now is the last driver, still on the lead lap. I think they have just enough of a gap that as long as they don't have a catastrophic tire failure or a need to make an extra stop, I think Octavio will still be able to finish on the lead lap. So it looks like our top 10 drivers will all finish on the lead lap here. Real quickly, I want to look at this upcoming fight for third position between Jeff and Suave. Earlier in the event, Suave put on some pretty respectable defense against drivers who are on much better tires than him. Will he be able to do that again to Jeff? As we're coming down to the final few laps, about 7.5 laps left here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Down the back straightaway once again. Jeff can see, he can smell the exhaust fumes coming out of Suave. We ride on board with Jeff just for a moment as we see him continuing to close in on Suave. He just chews away a half a tenth, if not more, in every single corner. And this section of the circuit, the S's, which are nothing but corners, this is where Jeff is going to really thrive. A bit of a drift out of the rear of the car by Suave. Jeff continuing to close in on Suave, getting closer and closer. We may see this overtake happen as they come down the front straightaway this time. Big lunge by Jeff and Suave as they come to the final two corners. And now is this going to be a crossover? There's a little bit of contact between them. We're going to see them as they come onto the front straightaway this time side by side almost. It's going to be a drag race between the two of them. Here comes the move to the inside. Down the front straightaway and now into turn number one. Who's got the advantage under braking? It should easily be Jeff, but no, Suave is the one who gets it. Suave gets back ahead of Jeff under braking, it appears. Oh, but Suave gets in the dirt and makes contact with Jeff in the process, and Jeff goes wide. Suave holds back on the inside. Big door-to-door contact. They're door banging all the while as this is going on. And now, once again, Suave holds on to third as Jeff backs out and falls back into the fourth position just for a little bit longer. Now, down the back straightaway, once again, the gap opens up a little bit bigger than what it was before. Is there damage on Jeff's car, or is he backing off to try and retake stock of his surroundings? That may have been exactly what's happened, because now Jeff is already cutting back into the small gap that Suave eked out. Back through the S's once more. It's completely clean track ahead of them, completely clean track behind them. There shouldn't be any traffic to influence this. It's going to be all mano y mano, and the fact that one driver's tires are much more worn and much harder than the others. All right, coming into the final chicane that cuts out Speedway, turn number one, this time by. Jeff's going to have a nice wide line through the second to last corner, trying to cross over on exit. Another big rear end slide from Suave, not quite side by side as they come out of the final corner, this time by. Now we see Jeff gets to the inside just as they come onto the straightaway. He's not even going to worry about drafting most of the straight. They're already in side by side, nearly perfectly wheel to wheel as they come to the exit of the pit straightaway. Can Jeff finally go deep under braking? Suave punches Jeff down to the inside. Jeff is gonna go deep. Jeff goes too deep. He's wide. He slides. Suave goes right back by. Suave gets the position back again. I am so incredibly impressed at what Suave is doing on those medium tires, making it work against Jeff, who is on some fantastic softs right now, but Suave is still keeping in. This fight for the podium continues. Once again, the gap opens up massively in Suave's favor. Suave only seems to have one defensive move. That's to force the driver making the overtake to run the tightest possible line and then let them run off. It's one move. It's such an easy to see move, but my goodness, is Suave good at making it happen, and Jeff is going to be getting absolutely angry because the longer and longer he is staying behind Suave, the less and less effective his tire advantage is going to be. Euro Dragon and Tsuka are both making another pit stop, but I don't think that they're going to end up having a direct impact on the fight, on this fight that we are watching when they come out of pit lane here. Alright, big twitch and slide once again by Suave. Are we going to see a repeat of what happened last time? The gap is just a little bit bigger between these two as they come onto the front straightaway this time by. It will be 4 more laps for this duo as they come across the yard of bricks. The gap is about a half second between Suave and Jeff. Jeff is a lot farther behind Suave than last time, but the draft is letting him reel in. Does he go for a move going into turn number 1? No, he does not. They stay just about nose to tail as they go into 1. Still nose to tail as they come to 2. Contact the 106. Pushes the 66. The 66 is wise. They come out turn number 3. The 106 looks to the inside. The 66 shuts the door. Suave shuts the door in turn 4, but the tires aren't there. He can't keep the door shut. They make contact. This goes to a switchback. Down the back straightaway this time by. What is Suave's defense going to be? Jeff runs right behind Suave once again. Does he go for a big dive? No, he looks to the outside. He wants to try and go the long way around as they come to the end of the back straightaway. Can't make it stick this time. Now he tries to cross over on exit. There's not enough room as they come down into the S's. Another big shot by the 106 in the rear diffuser of the 66. Another one as they come out of the S's. Now they come into what is known as Speedway turn number 2 and into the short chute. Once again, that red Porsche on those medium tires can't hold the door shut. This might be it. Side by side, they door bang under braking. Finally, Jeff has cleared Suave as they come down to it. And now they come into the second to last corner. Immediately the gap starts opening up. Already it's over half of a second in Jeff's favor. That may have been the move for the position. Alright, and now on to the front straightaway once again. Already the gap has opened up to about half a second, maybe even more than that, might be closer to 7/10 of a second. Suave is close enough to have the draft on Jeff, but now Jeff has clean air on the nose of the car, and the soft tires should pay great dividends for him. But my goodness, Suave really closed in on the brake in turn 1, just trying to do a last gasp scare on Jeff. Alright, now it's just 4 laps to go right now. It will be 3 laps to go when the leader hits the start-finish line. And that fight for the podium, I think, is just about ended. The big thing to remember, Jeff made his final stop a lot later than normal. His tires should be fine to the end here. I'm not going to say he's not going to have any tire fault, but his tires should be good enough that he could open up a nice little gap on Suave here. Remember, Suave is not going to be dealing with as much tire fault, but he is on medium tire compounds. Those tires just don't have as much in them to begin with. Still, he is staying just within drafting range of Jeff for the moment. Just barely within drafting range, about 6/10 of a second out. That's close enough to get just a whiff of draft. So Suave just desperately holding on, hoping that he can make something happen here. Octavio ZZ is on risk to going a lap down here as we're coming down to 2 to go when the leader hits the start finish line. Sir Brandy A has made that all soft strategy work out fantastically. So it seems like regardless of the amount of time you're losing on pit lane, it is more important to be on the softer tires all the way through. But these alternate tire strategies have made for a fantastic fight between Jeff and Suave. But it does seem like even with the accelerated tire wear, the end result is that the soft tires are far and away superior. It is better to make more stops and just have the sheer pace than to make fewer stops and end up with, or make the same number of stops with more tire wear. It's just better to have more time on the softer tires. Unless Jeff kind of falls off a cliff here, he has secured 3rd position. And that would also mean that our top 4 finishers would be our top 4 starters in that exact order. So Ruins, Brandy, Jeff, and Suave qualified 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and it's looking like they are going to finish this event in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. That's what it's looking like right now. One other thing I want to mention, Simply Clicks has gained 9 positions since the start of the race thus far. Notable Skydriver had also gained some positions before dropping out, but Simply Clicks is en route to gain 9 positions over the course of the race. Absolutely outstanding. The only downside is he still does not finish on the lead lap by the time it's all over, though. But now as we're coming down to the end of it, real quickly, I just want to mention Turtle and 8th place Turtle and 9th place Savage are both dealing with a little bit of traffic right now. There may be a possibility for a last-minute overtake, a last-minute change in position for 8th position. Turtle has dropped 2 tires in the dirt as they came out of the S's. Savage is close enough to get a bit of a draft run on Turtle here. Just about nose to tail, so suddenly a fight for 8th developing the last 2 laps. A big lunge by Savage into the braking zone. There's nose to tail as they come around the final corner. There will be 2 more laps left here for Turtle and Savage. Is there anything Savage can do to try and steal this position from Turtle? Down the front straightaway, across the yard of bricks, this time by. About 5 miles left for this duo to settle this spot for 8th position. Oh, that's a big lunge to 79! Well, I didn't even see that lunge coming, and I don't think Savage saw it either. That lunge was so gigantic that the car could not handle it, and he had to jump hard on the brakes to not go into the dirt, going into turn number 1. Immediately, the gap swings back open in a big way, back in Turtle's favor. Turtle goes back to having more than a second over Savage. Savage may have been faster, but he was not as disciplined as he needed to be, and that's going to give Turtle the position back. There is 1 more lap left to go here for our leader, VNX Ruins, who has a 21-second gap on Sir Brandy. Jeff DXE, it looks like he's going to secure 3rd position as he has pulled out a 3-second gap on Suave, although his tires are starting to fall off. They're not falling off enough to really put that up to grab, and Subaru is going to come home here in the 5th position. I believe that is the highest of the SP cars. It is going to be front-wheel drive Yordi, who looks like they're going to come home in the 6th spot. Inlaid Wheat is looking like they're going to come home in 7th here, just a little bit ahead of HDR Turtle. They still have about another lap to go. There is plenty of time for things to go wrong for them, but that's what it's looking like. And HDR Turtle has been caught by Savage again. So Turtle has already been caught by Savage again. 1 more time around in this fight for 8th position. The leader is coming out of the final corner, but we're going to keep an eye on this because this could get really interesting coming to the end. Turtle's going to defend the inside. Savage's going to go to the outside. Does Savage go for another big move down the outside? No, he actually gets on the brakes nice and early. Tries to cross over on Turtle. Side by side through turns 1. Side by side through turn 2. Side by side through turn 3. The 79 is pulled off the overtake coming out of turn number 3. But he's wide coming out of turn number 4. The 93 gets back to the inside. Briefly side by side coming out of turn number 4. But Savage has the position. Through the switchback. Down the back straightaway for the final time. And the fight for 8th position. Just about nose to tail. Savage moves to the outside, trying to defend the ideal lane. Does Turtle try anything? Turtle's going to go for the really extreme outside line. Tries to get a good run on the exit. Looking to do the crossover on the exit of the corner. Makes a little bit of contact as he's coming down to the S's for the final time. Big twitch by 93. He's sideways. He's still sideways. He's going to lose not just 8th position, but a huge heap and hunk of time in the process. Savage, despite making some mistakes, will take home 8th at the end of it. So your top 5 will be Ruins, Sir Brandy, Jeff DXE, Lil Kid Swab, IRT Subaru, and then it will be Yordi, Inlaid Wheat, Savage, and HDR Turtle. They will be the last drivers who finish the event on the lead lap here. As we watch HDR Turtle, as he will be 9th and the last of the drivers to come home here on the lead lap. And with that in mind, that will pretty much wrap up the race itself. We are going to take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, I will cross my fingers and hope that Xbox parties are functioning enough that I can get some post-race interviews in here, but we'll be back momentarily at Indianapolis. Alright, Ruins, can you hear me? Ruins, can you hear me?